So hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to API testing. So before we jump into the actuals of API testing and all the things, first I want to know what do you mean by API testing? Like some people have heard of about API testing, some people have worked somewhere with API testing, some people have just listened to API testing. I just want to get a brief understanding from all of you that what do you mean by API in 3 words? If someone asks you how do you define API in just 3 or 4 words, what will you say? It's okay, guys. Wrong answers are still allowed. You can type your answers in the chat box or you can unmute and you can speak. What do you mean by an API? Yes, I'm audible. I hope I'm audible. So, right.
Yes, Rahul. Application program interface.
Okay. API stands for Application Programming Interface, correct? What else you must have heard about it?
Must be having some web services.
The web services. That's great. So what else?
Technically, it's an interface between uh,
Hmm.
client and server.
Parent and server. Okay.
No, client and server.
Yeah. I'll be listening to all your answers. We use it for, okay, I'm not asking you the purpose of API testing. I'm just asking what is API? Yeah. Okay, it's interface between client and server, right? So that's fantastic. That's cool. So, what anyone else would throw some insight on what is API? How do you define API?
It is
Yeah.
the business logic that exists between the UI interface and backend.
Logic that exists between UI and backend. Okay. And I request everyone to join the session from laptop. Send and receive information. Ramesh says, send and receive information. Great. So all your answers are taken. So let me explain you what is API in real world. I mean, not in technicalities, with a real-time example that we always encounter. Now you assume that you are a customer. We are all customers. Now what we are doing here, we went to a pizza store. We went to a pizza store. Okay, as a customer, you went to a pizza store. Now, directly you relay the information to the chef in the pizza store, or how do you relay your information? There is someone called as waiter, right? Right? What does the waiter do?
He takes the order.
Yeah, understands the customer requirements. The right word is not taking the order, understands the customer requirements, because customer is someone that will always look for some customization in pizza. Even though there's a default pizza, sometimes they might look to customize. So understanding the customer requirements and suggesting the right one. Got it? What does the waiter do here? The role of a waiter is, so what does the customer do? Explains their requirement. Once I explain their requirement, then waiter will provide the required suggestions and ensures that he takes the they take a right they have the right pizza. Now once that is done, what will happen here? Once the requirement is given, then the customer places the order, right? Explains the requirement, will provide the required suggestion. Once the required suggestions are provided, then he places the order. So when I say he places the order, Does the pizza person, the team in the backend will understand? Like customer has given their requirements, that is understandable by a waiter. But directly, if you give the requirements to the pizza store or the chef or the pizza store directly, he may or may not understand exact requirements. What the waiter will do, he will formulate the requirements in such a way that the kitchen staff can understand. Okay. Once he formulates the requirements, then he relays, informs about what kind of pizza do they want to have. Right? So once the chef understands and starts preparing the pizza, and it is prepared. Now, who the chef gives the pizza to whom? Directly to the customer? No. The pizza will be given directly to the waiter. Pizza is given to the waiter. Okay. Once the pizza is given to the waiter, then what I will do here? Then the waiter what does it do? He delivers the pizza right from the kitchen. So in this process, this is the reality that happens in any pizza store, right? When you guys go to any pizza store, is this the reality that you face? Yes or no? Can you quickly confirm me, everyone?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I want everyone to confirm in the chat box, please. So if you see here, the waiter is acting like a mediator between the customer and the chef. Okay. What are the key points that we need to observe? One thing is, waiter is acting like a mediator between the customers and the kitchen staff. Waiter is not only taking the order as it is from the customer, but it is also providing the right suggestions if possible. Got it? And communicates the same to the kitchen staff. So what we need to understand here in this concept, what we need to understand, it is not only like a mediator between client and server. It is, so if you compare it with the real-time API, like whatever definitions I got, interface between client and server, logic exit. So send and receive information. All these parts constitute to form one API. Okay. Here, if you see here in technical terms, customer is the front end, kitchen staff is the back end, waiter is the API layer. So this example is applicable in whichever business flow you go. Whenever you go to any restaurant, the waiter will take your order. If you go for any shop, also the salesperson will display all the items. You will not interact with the billing team or the owner directly, right? Here, the salesperson or the waiter is like your API layer. That means they act as a mediator and they are there to provide suggestions. That is what is an API layer all about. Any doubts so far? What do you mean by an API in layman terms before we jump into the technical part? I request everyone to keep their mics on mute if you are not talking. I hope this is clear, everyone. Any doubts? Can you quickly confirm in the chat box?
Yeah, it's clear.
So this is how we explain what is API to a person who doesn't even know what is API testing in technical terms. This is how we start understanding the API testing. From here only the concept of building the APIs has come into picture from a development perspective also. The concept of building APIs has started from this very basic flow diagram. From here only the APIs has come into picture. From here only the developers understood the essence of API, and that is why the API development is more prominent these days from a development side also. That is why as testers, it is our duty to test the APIs on a regular basis. So that is the reason. So that is why I'm explaining you this very simple. Yeah, why it is an interface, Priyanka? Very good question. Why we call this as an interface? Means as an interface, you can have your own logic. See, the person who is working as a waiter in Pizza Hut, versus the person who is working as a waiter in Domino's, he has to change himself as per the requirement of the company. That means what? As in when you give it, like I will give one example. Now there is one, what do you call, there is one payment interface like a razor pay. How many, I mean, razor pay is used in how many places? Can anyone tell me? How many places the razor pay is used as the official payment method for most of the places? At n number of places. But have you understood that the razor pay works differently for different merchants? The reason behind it is razor pay is the interface. That means I'm giving you I'm giving you an option. I'm exposing couple of functionalities to you. How you want to build it, you build it according to yourself. I don't mind. That is why we call it an interface. Interface is something like I will give you the methods, you build it however you want. That means what? I'm giving you the waiter. As a recruitment agency, I'm giving you the waiter. My job is to give you the waiter. How you want to train, that is up to you. Got it? Got it, Priyanka? Why we call as an interface? That means I'm giving you the complete luxury or liberty. How do you use it? How do you play around with it? It's up to the business perspective. Similarly, in our office also, we say, I don't know what you do, but you have to finish the deliverables. That's it. So without dwelling much into this, let's jump into the actual thing about what is API. Now, what is API testing in technical terms? So most of you have answered this part. What is API? Full form of API, Application Programming Interface. So what are the purpose of API testing? Before we discuss why part, so what is the purpose of API testing? To test the business logic of the application. That means what? Now you have a PhonePe app. The PhonePe app does not directly interact with the bank. There will be a middle layer, the business layer. What does it do? The moment we enter the amount, the moment we enter the UPI pin, that UPI, PhonePe will connect to bank server and authorize the transaction using the UPI pin. That means there's a business logic that is built inside the PhonePe app. Similarly, inside the Google Pay app. The same thing, we are here to test the business logic. Like if I'm passing the amount as 300, exactly only 300 rupees of amount should be deducted from my account. If I'm passing the amount of 300 and all of a sudden it is deducting 600, that is a major issue. You got the point? For suppose when we are working with any payments department for credit card, I am swiping my amount for 2000, but instead it is deducted 4000. So where is the problem? The problem lies in the business logic, how the API is, how the business layer is built. The whole business layer is built on the API. Got it? So we never use or describe API testing as quick testing. This is the biggest myth that is happening. Doing API testing is not a quick testing. We are here to test the business part of the application. It saves time and effort. How? If the UI of the application is not ready, for suppose the development team told that they are taking around 5 weeks to develop the UI, and testing 5 weeks of time is required to finish it. But for suppose UI team has taken 7 weeks of time to build the UI. Now we have only left with 3 weeks of time to test the complete system. But We cannot be idle for the remaining 2 weeks, right? So since the UI of the application is not ready, and now we have crunch timelines, then we do the API testing to test whether the logic of the application is working fine or not. At least whatever parameters I'm passing, and it is performing the right behavior or not. At least we can do the API testing and confirm ourselves that our business layer is working properly. And quick finding of issues. What do you mean by quick finding of issues? During the API testing in the above process, if you find any issues, it is very easy to fix at the API layer. Like that means before the UI is ready, we can quickly find the issues at the business layer and we can inform the developer that while performing this transaction, I'm getting some error. Could you immediately fix it? Like that. And it is also reliable. API testing is something that is always reliable. Any doubts so far? Any doubts, guys?
No.
Great. Great. And if you see the testing pyramid also, API testing is done after unit testing. Like if you see the testing pyramid, you cannot draw pyramid. So the first step that we do is unit testing. The second step that we do is API testing. Then we do a round of system testing. Then we do a round of UAT testing. So after the unit testing that is done by the developers, immediately we start doing with API testing, because sometimes the UI may take some time to prepare or develop. That is where API testing will come into picture, and that is where we will always focus our testing on understanding the business and see how the business is working. I hope this is clear. Before UI is ready, so that means API testing tends earlier than functional testing. See, Sunny, if you ask me, even in the API testing also, we are doing functional testing. So functional testing is not about UI testing. Even API testing also is a part of functional testing. What do you mean by functional testing? We are trying to ensure that the business of the application is working properly or not. That is what is all about functional testing. It can be through API or it can be through UI. Both of the things constitute under the functional testing. So database testing is something that we use after we hit the API call. The API will interact with the database. See, as the UI, I cannot interact with the database directly. That connectivity is lost. After the API endpoint is hit, it will connect to the database and see what are the right transactions to be performed. But before the hitting the API, if you want to have some valid data for that API, that is where we use the database to fetch the right values. So what do you mean by database testing, Hardik? Can you define the scope of what kind of database testing are you talking about? If you can define the scope of your database testing, then I'll be more than happy to clarify that part.
So whether we are checking like after we submit like a employee registration and it's gone to the employee table, I'm trying to understand where it's coming. Like you told, this is a UI testing, then it's a backend testing, then middle rail is API testing. The where the DB testing is come, it's a backend or how the flow will go.
See, if you give me the actual flow, if you go with the actual flow, how it looks like is, well, suppose employee registration is there.
Yeah, definitely. So there is a one employee, they
So
just
this is
open one
the
URL.
application which is UI ready, where we fill all the details.
Yeah, like registration.
Where we fill all the details, correct?
Huh.
Now where ultimate destination is what? Ultimately,
It's
after
gone
put
to
the
the
details in the
employee
database.
table. Yeah.
Database, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Now there is a challenge. Now, when you say that your name, your last name is fine. Now, when you say your gender is female, in the UI level, we say gender as female, but the database doesn't take the value as female, right? It will take the value as F for some business logic. Tomorrow you
Yeah.
say full-time employee. In the UI, it will show as full-time employee, but in the database, you cannot show it as full-time employee. It will store like FE, FT, or regular. If you're a contract, it will say contract, something like that. If you're a full-time employee, it will not say as full-time employee. It will say in the database, we store it as a regular. So there's a lot of data conversions that happens here. So what will happen here? That is why we have a layer called as the API layer. What does this API layer do? It acts as a medium. So what will happen here? I will send my UI data to this API layer, API/business layer. Here, what I will do here understands, process the data from the UI and formulates the requirement such that data is stored properly in DB. So here we have the logic, actual logic. So what will happen here in the API or business layer, you use any Java or JavaScript, that is fine. So what happens here? Whatever data I get from the UI on clicking on the submit button, I'm talking about when you click on the submit button, what will happen? The front end technology, whatever React or Angular are using, it will be sent to this business layer. So whatever data that you have entered there, it will be sent to this business layer. Once it is sent to the business layer, it will accumulate all the data, formulates everything, and we write our logic, how the data should be inserted into the DB. So once the request is prepared accordingly, then what it will do, then whatever logic is there to insert the data into the database, that will be executed and it will start connecting to the database and insert the records into the table. So if you ask me, the database testing in this case, it is done after API testing. That means after the API call is completed, then only you can check whether the records are inserted into the table or not. Got it, Arti?
Okay. So after the processing the data in API, it will not go to the server, like it's telling like from client is
Yeah,
sending the request
I
to the
mean, it
server.
goes to server also. There is another requirement for server. In this case, there's no requirement for server. Like if you want to fetch the data from if you want to search for any data, then you have to connect to the server and server will in turn connect to database. You got the point? It depends. There are two things to look at it. In the backend architecture, we have a server also, we have a database also.
Okay. So we are is it possible one application is sending the data database also and server also? It should be only one.
It depends on the architecture of the developer. We are not so sure, right? What are the architecture that the dev team is following?
Okay.
Because
So it can be the
different teams have the different architectures. Like if you work with different organizations, you'll have a different architecture. Like in my organization, if you see, they have a database, they have a server. So what they do, they for any insertion they use the database. For any fetching of records, while fetching of records, they use the concept of servers because the data is stored in the server and there's something called as database indexing. If the database indexing is not happening properly, then again I have to fetch the record from the server and I have to do it automatically, like load balancing or node balancing or something like that. This is what happens in my organization. In my previous organization, they don't directly interact with the database. Between the business layer and the database, there'll be some middle client layer. It depends on architecture to architecture. So if you ask me, it varies from system to system. But these three components will be there. But what developers use it is something we never know. That is why we say API testing is a dynamic testing process which differs from company to company. Got it, Artik?
okay. So is it possible when you're telling like is from the server, it's getting the getting all the record from the server, but the same record for maintaining in the database also they have to maintain, right?
Yes,
Everything should
yes,
be same.
yes, yes, that is highly possible. That is what happens.
Okay. So when the data is pushed, like a create a record, it will go to the database also and it will go to the server also. I think
It,
server you told in your previous company just fetching it for not
yes,
creating
yes,
and
yes,
all.
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir.
It depends. It depends. Again, see, my APIs, what I have, it depends. That is why we say API testing is a different process because companies to companies, they have their own architecture, they have their own process of building the APIs. What we discuss in training is something generic, but when you go into the organization, the concept of API testing changes dynamically because the backend architecture, the way the API is designed to connect with multiple places is something different. Got it, Arti?
Okay. So API testing we can do in the browser also, like
No,
need
no,
to
no,
check
no,
any
no.
browser
No, no,
performance.
no. API testing is not a browser-based testing.
Okay.
APIs are never meant to be checked in browsers. What we check in, I mean, I understand what you're talking about. Like when you do the UI flow, you are saying that you can check the APIs in the network tab. That was the one you're talking
Yeah.
about. That is
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah. API calls.
that is not your browser-based testing. That is just to keep a trace of what are the API calls happening. Apart from that, nothing else. Okay.
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 Yeah.
Now, why API testing? 95% of the companies are building their business logic over the API. There are some 5% like legacy companies which does not still not using any APIs. I know of company where they are still using ASP.NET as a backend. They're not using any API, any API based business layer. And some of the companies I know they're still using some old days servlets and JSP concept. Priyanka, for the API testing, do we need database UI API testing tool? And see, for API testing, what we need to know, give me some time. For API testing, I'll tell you what you need to know primarily. Okay. Since most of the applications are developed, like most of the applications, the front-end applications are developed using Angular React, their business logic is written in the form of an API. So why API testing means these days only testing the UI part of the application is not required. We have to test the application at a core level. At a core level, at a rooted level, we have to test our application, not only navigating across the functionality, checking if there is working or not. That those days are gone. Now we have to check the application at a root level, at a core level. So coming to your point, coming to this diagram, what we understand here that for suppose UI is built in some React, this API layer is built in some Java. So how do this both communicate? What is the language, common language that I have? It's just like now Aarti is there. Aarti understands Marathi. I understand, I understand Kannada. So what is our medium of communication? It is either English or Hindi. Yes, Niyat?
Correct.
Yeah. So similarly, between these programming languages, what is the common mode of communication? Common mode of communication is
API.
no, JSON or XML.
Okay.
Because React understands JSON, API understands JSON. So they communicate via JSON request or XML request. So React will be sending a JSON or sending its request to the API layer on the JSON or XML language. In turn, what this Java will do, okay, I got this JSON data. Now I have to format this JSON data and process it as per my requirement and execute the DB query, which helps in inserting the data into my database or connect to this server where I have to use a SFTP protocol to connect to the database. It can be anything. Clear? This is the common language that is used between any programming languages. That is why we say, right? That is why we say that for API testing, whatever language you use at the back end and whatever language you use at the front end, it doesn't matter to us because these both are friends. They communicate in JSON or XML, like how we communicate in English. Even though you are from different backgrounds, yeah. In API testing, we use JSONs or XML, Sami, majority of the time. Yes. Now everyone are attending the session who can speak different languages, but I don't know your languages. Neither you know my language. Okay, so how we are communicating? Either in English or Hindi. So this is the same way how programming languages or different coding languages communicate each other via JSON or XML. With the help of JSON or XML as a medium only, we can test our APIs. I hope this is clear, everyone. Any doubts?
So you say like once you will click on some submit button on UI, then whatever data will go towards API, it will be going in either JSON or XML, right?
Yes, based on the business requirement and understanding with the customer.
Okay.
Now, there are two types of API that is popularly called as, not REST and SOAP. There are two types of APIs. One is online API, one is offline API. First, let us discuss what is offline API. This OS level communications, this Zoom meeting, whatever Zoom meeting we are using, where I'm able to speak, you are able to listen, the hardware that we use, and how do we connect over the video calls in WhatsApp or in Teams or anywhere. All these are called as offline APIs because of this OS level layer. That is why we are able to communicate with each other. So for communicating with each other on this platform, I don't require internet. I can use my audio video communications, OS level communications, and all these things. These are all called as offline APIs. What do you mean by online APIs? APIs that are connected via internet. For suppose the normal submit button in any application, when you launch any application, anywhere you go, those are the online APIs. That means those APIs will work when there's a network connectivity. If there is no network connectivity, I cannot access those APIs. Like how I've shared the Zoom link, how you all have joined. Those are all called as online APIs. Offline API means I can open my Zoom meeting, I can record for myself, I can do it because I have my audio video communication. In order to record a meeting of my thing, I don't need any API, right? I can record it for myself. I can speak for myself because I have a OS level communication that doesn't require any internet. For suppose the games that you launch when you install any games in your desktop, how the applications open up because of some offline API services or the OS level communication that we have. Clear? I hope this is clear, everyone. Now, what are the different types of API that we have? Internal API. What do you mean by internal API? So it is restricted within the organization only. It is restricted within the organization. What do you mean by public API? It is exposed across the internet. Internal API is something within your company where if I ask you to share the API details, you cannot share it because it's a property of your company. I cannot access it. When I say API is exposed across the internet, like Spotify API is there, like any API is there. They're exposed across the internet. You can use this API call and build your own music player or playlist. That is up to you. Like Razorpay, some of the endpoints of Razorpay are public. Partnered API. What do you mean by partnered API? API is restricted within the company and exposed to the partner company that has invested or that is part of the project. For suppose now we have some XIT company where it is not where it is job is building the endpoints. Now there is Y company. Its sole job is to do the testing of the endpoints. So what shall happen here? The endpoints that is developed in the X company should be exposed to the partner company Y. Why? Because these both are working for the same project. Or the client says that I am my own testing team in-house. I have invested in the project. So you expose the endpoints to me. I will test it by myself. Your job is to just develop. So those are called as partnered API. Composite API means what? Within one API endpoint, we can access multiple APIs in one go. That means what? In my make my trip site, you enter the from date, you enter the end date, you enter the return date, and you select the destination, arrival, and you click on search. Automatically, the make my trip will connect to multiple airline APIs in one single shot. Got the point, everyone? On clicking on search button in Make My Trip, it will connect to multiple API in one single shot and fetch all the flight details for you automatically. So those type of APIs, we can call it as a composite API, which is mainly used on travel websites, like any Redbus or Make My Trip. Any travel related website, they use this concept of composite API. I hope this is clear, everyone.
Yeah, Rahul, just one question. It's written that offline API are audio and video communication via any meetings like Zoom and Google Meet. So,
Anything,
Zoom and
anything.
Google
From
Meet are
Google Meet.
generally Sorry?
Zoom, Google Meet, even if you have your camera option, even if you have your voice recorder option, whatever is there, right? Like you have a voice recorder app,
Mm.
anything. I just gave Zoom and Google Meet so that you can understand it. Like sound recorder app is there. This also works on an offline API. Got it?
Yeah. Okay. How does it work like an offline API?
Like Zoom meeting is there. I install the Zoom desktop in my system, but I'm not inviting anyone, right? I can create my own Zoom meeting. I can do my own recordings, right?
Okay. Record and play.
No, whatever Zoom meeting is there, I open the Zoom meeting for myself. I can do the screen sharing for myself. I can record my own notes. I can record my own sessions. That doesn't require internet, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But for Zoom meetings, we need internet, right? Like if we are trying
No,
to
no, no,
join.
no. No, if you switch off your internet, you just start your own meeting by yourself. You try that, you'll get it.
Okay, I never tried it. Okay.
Try
That
that.
is because you are downloaded into the laptop,
Yes,
right?
yes, that is the reason. Or I'll say voice recorder. Okay. Or any gaming app. Anything. So what is the difference between the web server and web service and API? This is a commonly asked question again. So if you host your API using this local host 8080 or local host 1990 or local host 8087 or something like that. Yeah, yeah, Windows Media Player is also a good example. Yeah, that's also a good example, Windows Media Player. Thanks, Sunny. So when I host my API over the local host, that means you are hosting the API in your system only. That is called as a regular API. When the API is accessible over the internet, like for suppose, whatever the API is present, I deploy it on an AWS server and ensure that I'll share the API URL and you're able to access it. That means what? I'm accessing the API over the internet. That is called as a web service. Is this clear, everyone? Whenever there is an API that is deployed on some AWS or Azure cloud and you're ensuring that the API is accessible to everyone, that is called as a web service. When you host your API using your local host or in your system only, that is like a regular API. All the web services are known as APIs, but not all APIs are web services. Is this clear, everyone?
Can you give an example?
Okay. You see this Amazon.com, right? You open Amazon.com. When you open Amazon.com, so if you see this Amazon.com, right? So this API somewhere it is being deployed and somewhere. This API is not something that is present in my local system. This API is something I'm getting from some Amazon server. So this is called as a web service. Got
Okay.
it? Now you remember the concept of local host? Have you anytime heard about local host, Sunny? That means what? Local host is something like I'm not exposing my API over the internet. I'm using my system as a server to run the API. Like you see Jenkins localhost 8080. You remember that, Sunny?
Yeah.
That is like a API call. That is not a web service because I'm not exposing over the internet. If I say localhost 8080 to if I share that localhost 8080 to a friend machine, it will not work. But that is a API call.
So is it like Jupyter Notebook, which I
Yes, Jupyter
edit
Notebook.
to access
Jupyter,
files from my local desktop.
yes, Jupyter Notebook access. I mean, that's also not a right example if you ask me.
Okay.
Okay. Remember like PhonePe with the internet, and you're trying to test a dummy application of clone of PhonePe without internet
Okay.
and without hosting it. PhonePe app where I'm hosting it on a server, and I'm trying to create a clone of PhonePe app, which I'm not hosting it anywhere. I'm just trying to test it locally within my device. Got it?
Okay.
Any doubts so far?
No.
So before we go for different types of API calls and mechanisms and all, before we go for this, so let us see what are the different topics. So let us see what are the different topics that we are covering here as part of this API testing. I hope my screen is visible, everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
So what we are doing here, let's understand what we are trying to discuss about Postman. Here in the Postman session, so we will be discussing about what is Postman, what are the different API calls, what are the different variables like LD, ECG variables, and how do we start scripting our test cases, and how do we do data-driven testing using CSV and JSON file here, and we'll be discussing about what is Newman reporting. So we all know why we are using Postman. It's a popular API testing tool that allows you to easily send, receive, and analyze API requests. And we can also set up some wonderful workflows. We can also do a API key management. We can also set up multiple variables and making it a ultimate go-to tool for developers, testers, and API enthusiasts. And the second and last and foremost thing is Postman is one of the most popularly used tools across the globe. That means 20 million plus users are using this tool across the globe. And there are some people say Swagger is also used. Yes, Swagger is used for documentation in the olden days, but still Postman is also coming. Postman is also having some wonderful documentation within the tool nowadays. So something like Swagger and all, those are all some legacy-based API testing tools, but the current trending tool is the Postman tool amongst all the manual API testing tools. That includes SOAP-UI also. So our first goal is we're not here to understand that Postman is not about hitting the API calls and checking the response. We are not discussing the Postman about that. It's more than that. Second goal is we will discuss about how do we script the test cases and how do we run the test cases using the data-driven approach and how do we run our Postman scripts using the DevOps tool like Jenkins and Docker. These are the two goals I want to set it for Postman. That means I'm not going to teach you how to hit the API call and checking the response manually. That is not we are not discussing. We are discussing how do we script test cases, how do we run the test cases, how do we execute the same Postman scripts in the DevOps tool. So these are the different API methods that we'll be discussing about: get, post, put, patch, delete, head options. And we'll be seeing a lot of different examples like for different API calls, and it's how each an API call will impact in a real-time scenario. So we will give an understanding of what are the different variables in the Postman, like local variable, data variable, ECG, what are the different variables and why do we use it at what time we use it. Small assignment will be given to you at a later point of time after the Postman is done to let us know that how far you understood this Postman. And we will also see for the people who are new to JavaScript, don't worry. I'll be spending a class on what is JavaScript. What are the fundamentals of JavaScript that we need to know? What is the chai.js assertions? How do we validate status codes and response headers? How do we validate JSON schema? How do we pass the values to the next request? How do we set the values to different types of variables? And how do we automate some end-to-end scenarios using the Postman tool? And we'll also focus on data-driven testing using some JSON and CSV files. Because sometimes I want to test the API with different sets of test data. Like I cannot pass everything in the Postman. I cannot keep on changing the data. So I can use some JSON or CSV files so that we can run the API test with multiple sets of data and observe how the API behaves with different set of data. Like the common flows for any API testing is one is a positive flow, one is an invalid flow, one is an incorrect flow, one is an empty flow. What do you mean by positive flow? That if you pass the right data, how the API is behaving. When you say invalid flow, that means if you are passing some invalid data to the API, how the API reacts. Is it giving a valid error message or not? If you say empty, that means I am hitting the API and without passing any data. How the API is behaving. Incorrect means what? That means it seems like you're passing a correct data, but you've modified the data slightly that it is not a genuine data. So these are the 4 types of testing that we need to do for any API that you get. Because in this 4 iterations only, you'll get to know whether your API is working properly or not. Yes, Sushma? So we will also try to cover basic digestive and OAuth 2. We will try to cover basic authentication, digestive and OAuth 2.0 authentication. Okay. And we will also discuss how do we run the scripts via the CLI model, how do we run the collections via collection runner, how do we install Newman reports using the Node.js, how do we generate different kinds of reports. There are total 7 to 8 kind of reports that you can generate using the Newman. And how do we push all the Postman code to the GitHub. We will, at this end of this Postman, you will be in a position to tackle any kind of API requests and challenges through the API Postman tool. That is all about the Postman. Any doubts so far?
Rahul, are you covering this REST assured API framework?
I'm coming up. I'm coming to that. Don't worry. So far in Postman, everything is clear for you.
Yes.
So this is all about the rest assured automation. So what is rest assured? It's a popular open source Java based automation testing framework used for testing RESTful web services. So RESTful services allows you to write the test cases in a BDD style or a non-BDD style, and rest assured is a wrapper of HTTP client. For people who are confused about what is HTTP client, what is this wrapper and all, you will understand it slowly when I discuss about the rest assured. So rest assured, simple and easy methods allows testers to write test cases quickly, and it supports multiple HTTP methods and multiple data formats. And rest assured can be easily integrated with any CI/CD pipelines, allowing for automated testing and deployment of REST services. I mean, if the APIs are working properly, then I can give a go ahead to the DevOps team that you can deploy these APIs to the next level. So what are the different concepts that we cover here? BDD approach of writing test scripts, non-BDD approach, query parameter, form parameter, path parameter, headers. So I'll be covering all this query parameter, form parameter, path parameters, headers in Postman also. I've not mentioned this point, but I'll be covering all this in the Postman also. JSON and XML file passing using different libraries. Pojo concepts for preparing the JSON body and response. And how do we upload the files using the rest assured? We will be discussing more use cases, more scenarios about the rest assured automation. Then we'll also see how do we validate your JSON schema, because for any API automation testing, we have to validate your JSON schema. Like what is the structure of the JSON payload? And I have to ensure whether they are working properly or not. And we have to always see integration of scripts with Jenkins and Docker to run the test cases in a scheduled manner. How do we generate earlier reports for API automation testing? I mean, SOAP UI is something I just want to spend a class or something like that. How do we automate a SOAP UI using this rest assured libraries? Also, you can automate a SOAP UI. I just want to showcase you how do you pick a SOAP UI endpoint and how do you automate it. Yeah. It will be around 15, it will be around 20 hours, Sunny, because I'll spend 10 hours on Postman and 10 hours on Rest Assured.
So we can say 1 month, huh?
Yeah, 15 to 20 hours, that constitutes around 1 month, yes. Are we coding for developing APIs? See, we are not here to develop APIs. We are here to test the APIs. We are coding how to test our APIs. We are not developing any API. This is not any Spring Boot class or any Monstack class. Any doubts, anyone?
Yeah. So, rest assured, do we
Your
need
voice is
any
breaking.
programming
Your voice is
background?
breaking. Your voice is breaking, please.
So,
You can type your question. Yeah, you can type your question
yeah,
in chat.
sure.
Okay. Anyone else has any doubts?
I have one.
Yeah, please.
The syllabus also mentions the rest assured using Maven.
Yes, we are using Maven. Yes.
Okay, so how will be doing that? Brief on that.
So we'll be discussing about yes, Java is a prerequisite for this program.
Okay.
Java is a
So we'll
prerequisite.
be using Eclipse for integration.
We'll be using IntelliJ. We'll be using IntelliJ because that's the one of the most popular tools currently in the market, and it supports latest versions of Java. Well, at the end of the Rest Assured program or at the end of the Postman, you will be having some sort of a mini framework ready in your hands. So with that API, like whatever framework I'm teaching, it will be like a very generic framework. But again, based on the kind of the API endpoints that you have in your organization, you have to slightly change it. Vijay.
Understood. But we'll have the framework. Right?
We'll have a framework, but that framework cannot be used directly in your project because the payloads will be different. The business layer will be different, right? So you have to tweak it according to your requirement.
Oh, got
Yes, we are covering, and that is what I have discussed, what I'm covering. And we'll also be covering GraphQL also. I forgot to tell you that we'll be covering GraphQL. If you understand GraphQL here, you can also understand how do you use Playwright with API testing. That is like a foundation layer. I'm not going to discuss that part, but that will be like a foundation layer for you to do API testing using Playwright in future. We are picking up some public API endpoints which are real time, which mimic like a real time. We'll pick up some API endpoints which mimic like a real time, and we will see how do we do the API testing on a regular reality basis, like what kind of generic test cases, what kind of testing we need to do. The same thing you can try it in your company API endpoints. Of course, the logic changes slightly based on your endpoint, but we are picking up some public endpoints which are available for us to simulate like a real-time API. Is this clear?
How about job help after this training?
Job help, job support, we don't provide, Sushma, here. We are just provide training, but if anything that hits our referral network, we'll definitely post that opening here. And you can have a look at it. We are not job support or something like that. Only this is a training program. And if any any referrals come in our network, we will definitely share this.
Okay, and how about the fees of this training?
I'll give you the number. You can have a word with this. Kumar Gupta, sir. You have the number in the group description, and you can also
And
contact.
how long it will be, like 2 weeks, 5 weeks, like that?
It's 20 hours.
Oh, it's only 20 hours. So, okay. Thank you.
RK, if you don't have Java background, you can still attend it, but you can attend it, but there will be some fundamentals of Java that you need to know. If you can catch up, very few fundamentals are required. If you know, that would be great. See, you will be getting some certificate from the institute that is there. If mock interview is something, we are planning to have it like We are planning to have some mock interviews. We are not decided on the mock interviews, but if you are so serious about it, we can have it for you. But provided you need to finish whatever we discuss in the sessions, then only the mock interview eligibility will be there. Else, we won't. The purpose of mock interview will be gone, and you'll be getting a certificate from the Isha team. For any
So basically, it's just training. It's not like job placement and training.
nothing, no job placement, nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any doubts? Yeah. If no one has no doubts, so can we call it for a day, and tomorrow we continue our discussion about the different architectures in API testing?
And this was the demo class. So how about tomorrow? Tomorrow is it also the demo class?
You have a word with Kumar Gupta, sir. Generally, I don't keep a track of how many demos that we have. I just get a schedule that I have to start teaching it. You have a word with Kumar Gupta, sir, about how many demos will be there. He'll be the right person to answer you.
Yeah, and I just want to know because I like the style way you are teaching. That's why I'm asking, is the only this time? Because I was half an hour late and I cannot make
It's okay.
half
It's
an
okay.
hour early.
So today you can listen to the session via recording. Tomorrow onwards, the actual discussion starts. Today we just started with what is API testing, why API testing, what are the different types of APIs. So we are tomorrow onwards we'll discuss the API architectures and all. From tomorrow onwards we'll be discussing all those things. Tomorrow is the actual content chart. Today is just about the introduction to API testing.
No, I'm asking like because I was half an hour late and tomorrow also I cannot be early half an hour. That is my timing. That's why I'm asking the only this time you are taking or is there
I'm
any
as of
other
now
group
only this
also
time.
for the timing?
Only as of now only this time. But if
Oh,
any other session, you will get an update. Okay.
okay, thank you. And are you going to record tomorrow also?
Yes, sessions are all recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else with any doubts? So if no one has no doubts, then we can call it for a day. And we will continue tomorrow at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you, Kishore.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rahul.
Thank you, Rahul.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. Okay, guys, we'll catch up tomorrow at the same time, 8 p.m. IST. See you all tomorrow.
Thanks, Rahul.
Thank you. If you have still, you can post it in the group. I'll be answering there also.
In WhatsApp?
In WhatsApp, if you have any doubts, technical doubts, you let me know. I'll answer there also.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, guys. See you all tomorrow. I'm expecting the same people to attend tomorrow.